Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I'm about to let the Sony executives in Japan hop on my pony ass as I'm about to make a video talking about how much I like my PS5. Now, although the title of the video might have something like unpopular opinion or hot take, in all actuality, everyone that I know in real life that bought a PS5 did not regret it. They are generally very much satisfied with their purchase, and I have a feeling that's probably the stance of most people. My video is more so targeting my audience because I've seen a lot of negative sentiment towards this generation of video game consoles. Like, it seems like nowadays there's no point in owning a PS5. I think I ever remember seeing a tweet one time of someone pulling out their PS5 to play Spider-Man, and it had collected so much dust due to no usage. There's also this Wikipedia article that highlights the list of PS5 games that are exclusive to the console, and there are only like 13 games in total, despite the console being out for almost 4 years. There's just generally not a very positive impression towards the PS5 as far as its value proposition. And I'm here to say that I actually don't feel that way at all. I actually really like my PS5. I've never once felt any regret in buying it, and I still use it up until this day with no intentions of ever stopping. Now, I'm gonna give two disclaimers. One, I do not have any loyalty towards any console manufacturer. Two, my commitment to using a PS5 is not based on the fact that I do not own a gaming PC. Not only do I have one, but I can comfortably say that it's more powerful than a PS5 on every spec that I can think of, with the exception of the NVMe SSD that's admittedly a little faster than the one I have on my computer. I consider myself a PC gaming enthusiast. I've recently been revisiting Blue Reflection Second Light, and I've been playing it at 4K 60 with max settings, and I'm establishing all of this because I want to clear up any misconception that one may have that the only reason for why I would play on a video game console is because I haven't been enlightened by the Bible of PC gaming. I have, I like it, and I play it. But I also enjoy booting up my PS5, and unlike the common consensus with some people, I do not feel like this console has no value, and I want to break down the main criticisms towards this generation of consoles and why, at least to me, they are not as detrimental to the value of the console as it may be to other people. So firstly, I want to address the Wikipedia page because while it is accurate, it might be a little bit too accurate. And what I mean by this is that this doesn't count games that are cross-gen and that have PC ports. Now, I want to first address the cross-gen debate because this is a point of criticism manifested in two different ways. The first is that since there are still games, and I'm going to count both first-party and third-party games because I think they both contribute to the same issue, which is the fact that if you already own a PS4, there is no reason to upgrade to a PS5 if there are still games being released for older gen. Now, although I think this is a perfectly fair point, I cannot say that I particularly agree with this. Now look, I love my PS5. I think it was a great console overall, and I have fond memories with it. But I'm gonna be completely honest with you, I do not want to boot that console up anymore. Ever since I bought my PS5, it has become steadily more difficult to go back to using that old console with that slow mechanical hard drive and underpowered Jaguar CPU running games at 30 FPS, especially when I can just play those same games on my PS5, and there are notable advantages to doing that. Games can load faster, some have more stable frame rates, high resolution due to the PS4 Pro enhancement. In fact, if there is something that I've learned over the past couple of years, is that for the most part, I find myself mostly buying PS4 games and playing them on my PS5 without a single regret. Can I play them on my PS4 console and never feel the need to own a PS5? Yeah, sure, but if I'm getting a better experience on my PS5, plus the bonus of some of them having official PS5 upgrade available that often boosts the frame rate, the loading screens, graphic settings, and adds support for haptic feedback, fuck it, that alone is enough for me to consider buying a PS5. And that's not even considering all of the nice gen only games that will eventually become the standard. Now, another point that people often make regarding the cross-gen epidemic is the fact that it supposedly holds back the potential of new gen consoles. In essence, if you're making a cross-gen game, you're essentially designing a game that is catered to run on lower spec systems, and as a result, newer games aren't able to take full advantage of the new technology to push what they're able to achieve. Now, here's the thing. I kind of don't believe this. Now, admittedly, I'm a little bit biased because 99% of my PS4 gaming experience amounted to playing anime games that felt like they were stuck in the early PlayStation 3 era. However, even bigger budget AAA games, and maybe this is just me cherry picking, but when I see games like Gotham Knights, Redfall, Skull and Bones, Suicide Squad, games that are genuinely a technological downgrade compared to stuff that came out 5 to 10 years ago, I'm sorry, but I don't buy into this argument. I have no doubt in my mind that there are going to be developers like Rockstar Games and Capcom who are going to push the technology behind the system. I'm sure GTA 6 will have some pretty advanced AI and world rendering unlike anything we've ever seen. But every other AAA gaming company, I feel like they will just bloat their budget, run into production fiascos, and badly optimize their games before taking maximum to the metal advantage of the new hardware is something that they will even consider. Furthermore, and this is just my perspective, I don't think every game needs to be a new gen exclusive. There are a lot of low scale games out there, to bring back anime games as an example, that I don't think would require an unreasonable set of system requirements. Now, there may be some games where even if the graphics might not necessarily be on par with newer gen, they may have mechanicals that take more subtle advantage of the console's processor, and I'm certainly not going to begrudge any developer that decides to exclusively focus on the newer gen in order to facilitate the production. But at the same time, when I see a pixel animated 2D fighter with fairly standard fighting game mechanics, let's just say that I'm not going to blame them if they decide to make it cross-gen or even exclusively old-gen, especially when there's still a pretty huge market of PS4 owners. Granted, I'm aware that my feelings are not reflective of everyone's. I know there are people out there who saw 4K 120 in the box and thought that they would get games that run at exactly those settings, which I don't know why anyone would ever believe that, but whatever, I guess. I know there are a lot of people out there who really care about graphics and believe that compared to older generations, the jump in visual fidelity felt underwhelming this generation. However, I play fucking anime games. Clearly I do not care about graphics. If someone mentions ray tracing, lumen, mesh shaders, or Unreal Engine 5 in front of me, my mind will just blank out because that shit just doesn't matter to me. I just want to play the video games and I really don't care if it's a PS4 or PS5 tier game. If I can play it on my PS5 and there are notable advantages to playing on it over a PS4, I'm going to play it on my PS5 even if the only advantage is faster loading screens. Now, something that I do believe is an issue is the fact that I do think that video games nowadays are taking a little bit too long to come out. Like, when I got into gaming, I was used to seeing yearly or bi-yearly releases. I was used to games having about 2 to 3 years of production time. But nowadays, it feels like video games are having like 5 to 7 year long production cycles, which I think is ridiculous. I see no reason for why it should take this long and this much money for games to be made. And if this is the reason for why you don't want to buy PS5 because you don't feel like there are enough new games to justify owning a new console, I think that's a fair point. Me, on the other hand, I kind of buy and build gaming systems with the expectation that I'm probably not going to spend that much time playing video games anyway, because generally speaking, I'm not someone who has that much time to play video games. I have huge backlogs and I often replay games that I already own, which is what I'm currently doing right now with Bullet Fraction. And I feel like I'm still hunting down PS4 games that it's not like I see myself emptying the PS5 area in store shelves as a result of a drought in the total library of PS5 games that exist. Honestly, I still find games that I never even heard of that kind of look interesting, and I know that the list is going to continue to grow in the coming years. So while I do think this is a valid point, and I do actually agree that the long production cycles is a very serious problem, at the same time, as long as there are still gaming franchises that I care about, which there are, I don't exactly see myself selling my PS5 or anything like that. Now, the other angle that I want to tackle, and this is something that I've brought up before, and that is PC. Now, I think the argument of PC mainly applies to third-party games, and I guess you could also reference the fact that the list of exclusive PS5 games is not high enough to justify buying the console when you can already play the same game on PC. And you know, I will tell you one thing, there are definitely some advantages to playing on PC. You have more freedom to customize the graphics settings, in which depending on how strong your PC build is, you're able to get better visual results than if you were to play it on a console. PC also has mod support due to the more open environment of PC compared to the lockdown operating systems running on consoles. You can more easily get into emulation, and PC is more general purpose compared to consoles. You can do other things on your computer like editing videos, writing documents, and other hobbies and productivity oriented activities. Unlike with consoles, in which at best you can maybe argue that they often have a more convenient home media experience, but beyond that, they are by and large designed to be gaming devices. And you know, if you're not someone who's interested in owning more than one gaming device in your house, maybe you should just stick with a PC if that's all you need. Now, I on the other hand have a bit of a different perspective. I would rather own everything. I don't have any particular loyalty towards any platform, and that includes PC. Now look, I treasure my gaming rig. I spent a lot of money on it, but I do not have any loyalty to it. I don't take any pride in being a PC gamer. That label means nothing to me because I don't give a fuck about the platform. I care about the games. And it's not even necessarily because I'm a gaming purist. I buy everything mainly because I like Japanese media, period. If anything, you could call me a Japanese media purist. I like Japanese animation, I like Japanese music, I like Japanese internet content, and I like Japanese games, and I want to be able to play all of it. In fact, the only console that I don't own is an Xbox, and it's specifically because a lot of Japanese gaming companies neglect the platform. If there were more, or really any Japanese games that were exclusive to the Xbox Series X, as in it's not available anywhere, including PC, I would be a lot more willing to own an Xbox even if it was just to own that one game. But there's another reason for why I don't have an Xbox, and that reason is a little bit worse, and it's actually one of the main reasons for why I don't buy a lot of games on PC. You see, for all the advantages that I mentioned earlier, there are some drawbacks to PC gaming that really get to me, such as secondary launches, invasive borderline rootkit DRM and anti-cheat software, and most importantly, no physical media. And even back when it did exist, they were limited to serial keys, online checks, 0-day piracy protection. You know, I will bitch when a game decides to not do any physical releases on consoles, but on PC, I don't even bother complaining because I know that even if physical media was still alive on PC, it would be so cancerous, and much of the anti-tamperment protection would prevent you from truly owning the game anyway. However, on the console side of things are a lot better, but it's not perfect. There are problems. Xbox, for example, a lot of their first-party games don't even come with the full game on it. And even some of their third-party games, mainly the ones that are Xbox One or have support for smart delivery, even if they have the full game, they will still require you to download a patch in order to run it. And when I say they require a patch, I don't mean the Review Tech USA definition of requiring a patch, in which he pretends like a game having an update available, like day one updates or something like that, means that the version 1 build is unplayable, which is often completely untrue. But in this case, they actually do require a patch. They will literally not launch without it. Now granted, Microsoft did remove this requirement for some games, but not all of them, which makes the physical copies completely useless. You might as well just buy them on PC. Now, Nintendo Switch does have its fair share of games that require you to download the remaining build off of their servers, but that's mostly third-party games. Their first-party games usually don't have this issue, and frankly, those are the only games that I realistically would want to buy for the Switch anyway, so to me, this is a bit of a non-issue. PlayStation, I feel like, is the least guilty of this because they use the highest capacity format of Blu-rays, which would have more than enough space for the vast majority of games out there. Of course, there are still some games that pull off this shit. We do have our fair share of online-only titles. Some of them are PlayStation titles, may I add. Games that don't include the full data on the disc. Some games have pretty bad version 1 builds that you kind of need to update even if you don't want them. I'm not saying this isn't a problem with consoles. It definitely is, and it's one of the main reasons for why I stopped buying a lot of games. But in the grand scheme of things, this represents a pretty small percentage of published games out there, and the ones that I own, they have pretty fine builds. And honestly, as long as PlayStation continues to preserve the media of optical discs, I'm gonna continue buying their consoles because I care about owning my games. I don't want to buy digital keys, I don't want to buy things that are tied to a server. I would rather not do any of that. That's not to say that I never buy digital games. For example, I'm willing to buy indie and AA games digitally because more often than not, digital stores are the only way they're even able to publish their games because they're not in a position where they're able to handle the logistics of selling physical copies internationally, and I have enough respect for them that I'm willing to sacrifice my ownership of the game if it means that I'm financially supporting passionate indie developers. Any game published on GOG is an immediate buy because they don't even have DRM, so I can easily archive them and reclaim my ownership. There are also some games where honestly my boner for PC gaming is hard enough that I'll just swallow my pride and buy them on Steam in order to experience the PC gaming magic. Sometimes they might even be games I already bought for consoles. Now, with that said, I know a lot of people don't really care about physical media, and if you fall into that camp, maybe you don't really need a PS5. Although personally, even if it wasn't for the physical media advantage, I would probably still consider owning a PS5 if it meant that I would be able to play some Japanese games that could be exclusive to PlayStation. Even if there's a possibility that they might end up getting ported later to PC, do I really want to wait an undetermined amount of time before it's announced that a game is finally getting ported to PC? Like, I know PC gaming is nice, but if I really want to play a game, I don't know if I'm willing to wait 2, 3, or 10 years for a game to finally arrive on PC, and that's assuming that it will ever get ported. I mean, where's Sakura Wars? Where's Gintama Rumble? I don't see a PC port. Like, what is the threshold for how long I have to wait for a PC port to be announced before I eventually realize, you know what, just buy the fucking PlayStation copy? Again, that's why I would rather just have everything. Now, of course, I have my fair share of gripes with the PS5. For one, I don't like the soldered SSD. I hate the fact that it's become a lot harder to replace the hard drive. So if this thing dies out, which eventually it will, I pretty much have to send this to a repairman in order to replace the SSD, unlike before when it was considerably easier to swap the mechanical hard drives. Secondly, I don't like how convoluted it's become to back up save files on a USB. It's not impossible to do it, but compared to PS4 save files where you can selectively archive save files, the way it works on a PS5 is that you have to back up all of the save files collectively, which is really stupid. The third issue, and this is the biggest one, it feels like Sony has been neglecting Japanese developers ever since around the last few years of the PlayStation 4 gen console. They even shut down Japan Studio, which was to me one of their biggest betrayals. And if they consider to head towards this direction, it might actually get to a point where I start to question if I even want to continue buying PlayStation consoles in the future, especially if physical media starts to wither away. But at least for the time being, I'm quite happy with owning my PS5. It's very responsive, fairly fast, very stable, has a pretty nice UI, very easy to record videos, pretty reasonable HDR support, lovely controller, and only requires me to press literally 2 buttons to boot up a game. Combine these advantages with their library of exclusive PS4 and 5 games and commitment to pushing physical media, I think I'm sticking with my PlayStation 5 for the time being. And I think that's pretty much all I have to say. Take care.